Guys, that we're recording. Thank you. It's now 1 p.m. Uh, we're officially starting our Collections 101 Best Practices webinar. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us and talk about Peter's favorite part of the business, money.
Money, 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 money. Love it.
Oh boy, it's gonna be a good one to get
It's
through.
gonna be
Before we get started, a couple housekeeping items. We want this to be a collaborative session. So if you can keep an eye out for the polls that we have and participate, that would be awesome. If you look to the bottom of Zoom, you'll see the chat where you can drop in there, let us know where you're from, let us know your comments, questions as we're going through the session. And feel free to ask questions as you go. Again, we want this to be collaborative and we want to be able to help as much as we can during the session, ask questions, and we'll also have a live Q&A at the end. If there's anything that comes up that you don't get a chance to ask during the session, feel free to drop that in at the end. We'll have a minute for that. We did send out a poll beforehand through LinkedIn, and Alyssa's going to go ahead and share what those results are before we hop into the presentation.
Yeah, so we've got a slide kind of within there, but for the more recent people who've just taken the poll, we did get a few responses. Our question was, what's your biggest concern when it comes to your collections process? So we had 53.8% of people reply consistency, and then we had 7% say organization, 38% said efficiency, and then a few more said standardization. So thank you very much for taking the poll, and we'll have a few more within the webinar, so stay tuned.
Thank you, Alyssa. That's great. Peter, thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Could you let everyone know a little bit about you and a little bit about Competential?
Absolutely. My name is Peter Spicknagel. I'm the president and CEO of a company called Citizen Storage. We roughly manage 10 locations in 3 states. But over my career, I've managed over 90 locations in about 15 states and been in the industry for quite some time now. I'm also the president of the Self-Storage Association of Michigan, and I'm the director of business development for Call Potential. So I wear quite a lot of hats, but love what I do, and I'm very excited to kind of share with you how we approach collections, how Call Potential does it, and give you some best practices, and hopefully you'll walk away with at least 1 or 2 new things that you may didn't know before this webinar. So I would like to kind of tell you a little bit about Call Potential. So Call Potential was really created based off a need from the owner, Phil Murphy. He's an owner operator as well, and saw that there was a need for his stores, and he had a technology background. So he decided, well, there isn't really anything out there that kind of meets my needs, so I'm going to just develop it. And a lot of things that we do come from that owner-operator mindset. I'm an owner-operator, Phil's an owner-operator, and we really try to design our software with that in mind versus a tech company trying to create something for operators, and they really don't know how the inner workings of running a property from the day-to-day basis works. But that's kind of how we take our approach to developing software, and it's anything from, if you want to do your own internal call center, we have software to sell you to do that. We don't provide the warm bodies. From a CRM system, which is a customer relationship management software, or a collections module that we're going to talk about today. And it really focuses on taking tasks that are kind of the manual process and moving them into more that automation side of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about your collection pain points, what things happen from 3 different perspectives: from the tenant perspective pain point, the manager who's running that property, and the owner of the business, powering your business with technology, and how you can get started with that if you guys wanted to go down that road. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. But just want to make sure you guys understand we're monitoring the chat, we're monitoring the Q&A part of the webinar as well. So if you feel like you want to ask a question when we're going over certain things, Holly's going to be monitoring that, and we'll chime in, but we're also going to have an open Q&A at the very end as well.
Excellent.
So, and this is the poll that Alyssa was just talking about, which we'll talk a little bit more about the consistency of collection process and kind of how to tackle all that stuff for sure. So let's first talk about your pain points let's first talk about a tenant. and their ability to actually make a payment. And I think right now it's kind of a perfect time to talk about it in the COVID-19 type of world from a tenant perspective. And what they have, if you don't offer them avenues or channels to make payments in multiple ways, it can cause that pain point for the tenant. So there may be people who are very terrified or scared about going out of their house. They're still in that COVID-19 bubble. They don't feel comfortable doing it. If you're not offering them avenues or channels for them to make a payment that is contactless, it can create a pain point for them and causes cash flow problems for you. And for the manager, there could be a significant amount of pain points here. In my career, I started out as a property manager. So I sat behind that desk just like you guys did. If you're property managers on the call here, I was the one who was picking up the phone, making those past due collection calls. And I'm telling you, it is a part of the job that I did not like. And it was always a struggle. It was always a awkward conversation between myself and the tenant. And there was a lot of hesitation to actually do it. You always get that little butterflies in your stomach, like, oh man, hopefully this tenant's not going to be upset that we don't have an argument. Hopefully they want to make their payment that they just forgot. And it kind of goes into my belief that there's really two different reasons why a tenant does not make their payment. One, they don't have the money. Two, they just forgot. And everything else outside of that doesn't really, in my opinion, it falls into one of those two buckets. And from a manager standpoint, if you're calling somebody who just doesn't have the money to make your payment, that call, in my opinion, is a little bit wasted, and it causes a lot of tension between you and that customer. And the second one, the people who just forgot are embarrassed that they forgot, and it again is that awkward conversation between you and that customer about their past due balance. From an owner standpoint, the pain points are cash flow, right? I want to make sure I pay my employees. Well, I can't pay my employees if my tenants don't pay. So it causes a lot of stress. A lot of owners are up at night because there's a lot of responsibility on their shoulder to make their payments on their mortgage bills, their payroll for your property managers, the payments for vendors, real estate taxes. There's a lot of stress that goes in on the ownership side, and making sure that you have collections on a normal basis, and you don't have people who are past due significantly. It can cause a lot of pain points, a lot of worry, and making sure that your managers are doing what you're asking them to do. That's a big one too. I'm not saying that anyone on this call is a bad manager, but there are some managers who pretend to make phone calls and put notes in the accounts that left voicemail with them, or they'll be in next week, but they never actually talk to them. And that's a pain point and a lack of control from an operational standpoint that an owner may not know is actually being done. And it can cause a lot of pain points from the owner's perspective as well.
All right, here's our first poll, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and start that now.
And again, we wanna make this as interactive as possible, so make sure you vote here once that poll jumps up.
We're gonna give about 45 seconds before we close it out, unless everyone votes before the 45 seconds.
So the question here is, do you use automation in your past due rent collection process or standard operating procedure?
Peter, out of curiosity, in your operator experience, when did you start using automation?
So it was probably about 2 years in as an operator that we started doing it. We first started with, it was kind of a mix between automation and manual process. And it was something that we're kind of dipping our toes into. We started doing some texting, and it was kind of a clunky system that we used, and there was really not a ton of reporting to let us know how effective it was. It was like, send it out. Hopefully people are responding to it. We'll see, you know. And so it was kind of a baby steps into it. I think the technology was still kind of early on, and as a result, it was a mix between automation and manual.
I think when you started, people didn't even have mobile websites yet.
Right,
I mean, if it was
exactly.
that
Everyone
long
just
ago.
Yeah, it wasn't responsive. It was
The
just a
Wild West.
static. Yeah, well, and then it got to mobile, and then desktop, and then
Yeah.
it finally morphed into responsive, which is ultimately what everyone hopefully should be having their website.
So thank you everyone for participating in the poll. Looks like 47% of the attendees are using automation, 42% are not, and 11% are thinking about it. What do you think about those results, Peter?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mixed bag on if you're using automation or not. And even if you are using automation, it's kind of going back to what Holly just asked me about, is it a mix between fully automated, or is it like an automated / manual process where you have to trigger events and you have to go process them, and then it's not that surprising to me, kind of having like 47% say yes and 42% say no, and then no, but looking into it, those numbers are pretty right on, from what I've seen in the industry as well.
Perfect.
All right. So collections, if we keep on talking a little bit about this, without a standardization process, it can really impact your operations. There's a few things that I think are considered core competencies to running a business. Collecting money is probably right up there. It's number 1 and 2.
Your favorite.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. Whose isn't? And the second part is the leads and making sure you continue to rent. Right. We're in a industry that has high turnover every single month in rentals. We only have short-term leases, month to month. So somebody moves in, they could just stay that 1 month and move out the next one. So it's really important from not only collecting the money, but also being able to ensure you're constantly renting to refill up those units. So and it can be a very messy process. It could be if you're moving people in, and maybe there's an environmental thing or a social issue that's going on for that loss of revenue. I think during the beginning of this whole COVID-19 lockdown, a lot of operators were watching their receivables very closely. I was looking at it daily basis. I was comparing it to the previous month. I was comparing it to the previous year. I mean, I had all these spreadsheets going and just tracking to see, what the impact would be. And we knew that kind of going into it, if we had a lockdown, move outs would be basically nothing, move ins would be basically nothing, and our sole focus was collections. And to our surprise, it did not have a significant impact, at least on our properties. And but we wanted to make sure that we are still communicating effectively with our customers about their past due balances, trying to work with them, and softening a little bit of our messaging in our automated reminders that went out. So we were definitely well prepared for it based off of what we already had in place. I think a lot of operators who didn't have the automation had to make some decisions and alter their operations fairly quickly to kind of catch up. And there's the frustrated tenant part. Could be if you're making those manual phone calls, they could get frustrated. And if they stop by the property and the property's closed and your only avenue to make your payment is to stop in the office, they can frustrate the tenant. Maybe you don't have a call center available that could take payments over the phone. I mean, there's a lot of frustration on the tenant's part to actually make their payment. And you could have unprepared employees too. And what that means is it's not that it's the employee's fault. It could be the company's fault for not giving them the tools, training, and resources to be able to do the collections in an effective manner, and understand too what's expected out of the employee. So I think it's incredibly important to have standardization, be very communicative with your staff, and make sure they have the tools to be able to do their job effectively.
I think I had heard from a couple operators that they had removed some of the manual tasks that they were having their management team doing because they were coming across some opportunists, tenants who maybe weren't necessarily having a financial hard time, but were using that manual call from the manager to see what they could get from it. So I think that that's an interesting part of the automation, that you can decide, what channels that you want to communicate through to.
Yeah, absolutely. If I always give this example. One of my buddies, I try to give him a call, see what he's doing this weekend, and goes to voicemail fairly quickly. And I get a text within a couple seconds, say, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he hates talking on the phone. He preferred to communicate over text. My mom just upgraded phone, which is good, but for some reason she prefers email over texting, and it'll be forever until I get a text back, and text is leaving a lot of information, so I'm not trying to read it.
Wow.
And I'm trying to understand what she's saying, and that she prefers the email. And I have another friend who just prefers to talk, and so anytime he calls, I'm like, dude, just text me. Like what are you doing here? We don't need to have this long conversation. So there's a lot of people prefer different methods, so making sure that you're communicating with your tenants the way they want to do business versus the way that you think you want to do business is really important. And when you're deciding how to communicate with the customers. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about the expense from a manual standpoint, and also probably a mix between manual and automated. And so from an expense side, you're always looking at time. And you're looking at invoicing a customer, you're looking at processing past due notices, well, you're printing them out, you're folding them, you're putting stamps on it, the cost for the ink, the cost for the printer, envelopes, the time that it's involved with your managers to process all that stuff. And really the employee time, in my opinion, is one of the most valuable things you can have as an owner operator. Is what are my employees doing with their time? Are they really spending 4 or 5 hours a week making those collection calls? Or are they taking that 4 to 5 hours a week, answering lead calls, following up on leads, thinking about creative marketing strategies, prepping units, doing their walkthroughs, doing stuff that really is important, in my opinion. And I think collections is important too, but you have to look at it from a point of view, what is the most effective way to do it versus what we've always done. And
Maria,
yeah, go ahead.
I'd say Maria shared in chat, she had another good point, that she prefers texting and emailing. That way the communication is documented between tenant and operator.
Absolutely. And you have the record too. So not to go back to the maybe the manager who might not be the best manager, but if they put it in the notes section, left voicemail, do you really know if it actually happened? With a text and email, you have that document trail. Let's say you get into an auction status with them, you end up auctioning off their unit, and for some reason they want to sue you for wrongful sale. And you go into the court, it's really easy to print out all your documentation, say, hey, text, email, here's the calls that are automated that went out, here are our notes, and hopefully you'll win that case based off of the documents that you have within their account. All right, we're ready for poll number 2.
Awesome. This is a fun poll. This is a little bit of trivia. On average, what percentage of total inbound call volume is for payments at the average facility?
It's a good one. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what everyone's opinion is on this. I think some people think it's probably 100% or 30, 40%.
I feel like always taking payments.
Yeah. And what I call like these customer service payment calls, I call them white noise calls personally, because it's really more of a distraction than really something that our managers should be focusing on. I think, tenants they're all adults. We all have bills to pay, and we all have responsibilities, and it's really their responsibility to make their payment on time and in advance, hopefully, of the rental due date.
So Peter, would you rather make past due rent calls for an hour or get a cavity filled?
Cavity filled. No, I'm joking. I have a lot of cavities. I have a bit of a sweet tooth. But it's one of those things that you know, if I was working on a day-to-day basis, there's definitely other activities as a property manager I'd rather do than make collection calls and processing payments.
Gotcha. All right, here are the poll results. You guys did very, very well. 43% said they thought 31% of the inbound call volume for payments I'm sorry, 31 was the percent of inbound call volume for payments at the average facility. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Did you think they were going to get it, Peter?
Yeah. I mean, I think people are pretty smart with coming to their property. They have a good idea what their call volume is, but it's 31% is the correct answer. So 30% of your calls. I mean, that's a lot of time. Every single day, every single week, month. That's a significant amount of time you're spending on the phone just processing payments, right? Or it's quite a lot. Granted, you get to connect with the tenants, you get to have that relationship, but then also it's just a task that really a system can handle. And some of the things that we do here at Call Potential is we built a smart route technology. And this has kind of been a game changer for us as far as inbound calls to our property and the amount of time that a manager is on the phone. And so if you're doing something, I always think a phone call, if it's an interruption to what you're doing, I hope it's a revenue generating call as opposed to kind of one of those payment processing calls. And what we built is we can automatically determine based off that caller's phone number, if they're a current customer, and if that current customer is delinquent. And we can then route them to a pay by phone automated system that they're able to make that payment right to that technology versus that phone ringing at all at the property. So instead of the phone ringing off the hook, if you're a first of the month billing company, end of the month it's ringing nonstop. Typically, people are moving at the beginning and end of the month, so I prefer my managers answering lead calls at the beginning and beginning of the month versus answering payment calls. And what our system can do is instead of putting an IVR in there where press 1 if you want to make a payment, press 2 if you want to rent a unit, I'm kind of the poster child for this. I'm the guy who is pressing 0 nonstop to get to a live customer because I hate the IVR systems. I hate talking to cable companies. I hate those multiple menus that you get, and I just want to talk to somebody. And with the smart route, what it does is it takes that away from the caller, their ability to press 1, 2, or 3, and puts them where they can best be served immediately, as opposed to them going to a representative or somebody else on ring 1. So what we can do is put them right into that pay by phone IVR system. They can make their payment right to them. And especially with identity theft on the rise, without human intervention, it gives them a little bit more peace of mind that humans are not writing down their credit card information, that they don't know if they're now gonna steal their identity. Adds that little bit of security and operational and financial control into your operations, which is a really nice thing from an owner's perspective, from a tenant's perspective. Again, it relieves some of those pain points that those two groups had. And then the third group, which is the property manager, it reduces the amount of time you have to spend on the phone. You can actually make the property look good. You're making follow-up calls. You're doing what you're hired to do, is sell, let your personality shine through, get driven, hopefully making your KPIs, key performance indicator goals, and really make that property sing as far as occupancy and revenue.
Great.
So manually invoicing and reminders. This is something that, again, it takes time. And we kind of touched a little bit on earlier. If you're manually invoicing or sending reminders, I think, again, if it's a company, invoicing makes sense because they need to have an invoice to pay to. But most of our tenant base is customers, homeowners, apartment renters, transient people who are moving one place to the next. And we all have our mortgage due on the same day every single day. We all have our renters. Rent is due on the same day. It's the same thing from an apartment standpoint. It's the same thing for self-storage. And I really think it's their responsibility to pay on time. And reminders are us basically chasing them down and holding their hand and say, hey, you need to pay us. And that it goes into that two reasons why people don't make their payment. One, they forgot, or two, they forget, or they don't have the money. And the people who don't have the money, you have their stuff. They're very incentivized to pay you, more so than their Netflix bill or their Disney Plus bill, or any other streaming services. They're going to prioritize the payment of that storage bill over almost everything else. And the truth is, really, traditional collection methods are fading from our industry. Even on that beginning poll, half the people on this call are already doing it, right? So it's something that is becoming the norm within our industry, and people are understanding the benefits of it. And the calling somebody up, or printing out a past due notice, putting a stamp on it, sending it out. A lot of companies are trying to go 100% paperless at their properties to help reduce expense. And also, it's the way that the marketplace is moving towards. If you look at the Amazons of the world, people are used to transacting over their devices or their screens, and they prefer to do business with businesses who want to communicate that way. So those old traditional methods are slowly fading out. I think there's still a place for them within our industry, but they are definitely not going to be the method going forward. And your competitors are probably doing this as well. So it's something that is constantly changing, and we always want to stay up on it. So we found a nice study that was done by VMware, and it says right now employees are spending 17% less time on manual processes when they're empowered with technology. And what this is really trying to say is that technology is not a replacement for the property manager. The property manager, you guys are an extremely important part of our business. And I've been doing this for long enough to understand when I see underperforming properties, some of the things we look at is, we want to kind of slice and dice. Is it marketing? Is it a marketing issue at this property? Is it a pricing issue at this property, which is one of my passions too. I love revenue management, and I always dig into that. Is it a training issue? Is it us as an owner operator? Is it our fault that we didn't provide the right training, tools, resources for our managers to do their job? And then lastly, we always look at, is it a manager issue? And one of the biggest things I think you can make a property successful or not is by that manager. And if you empower them versus get rid of them, I think that's the biggest differentiating factor. Is I want to empower my employees to use tools, training, and resources to do their job the best they can. And I think when you do a hybrid of technology and employees, and that employee can use that technology to help with what they're doing, it really is the perfect marriage between your employee and technology.
Yes. So I just want to give a shout out to my friend Jim Mooney, who's in the chat now, saying work smarter, not harder.
That's right.
And Diane said, we don't send out reminders, but we do make courtesy calls between the 5th when we overlock and the 10th when late fees are added. And it seems that if nothing else, I've managed to train a lot of my customers to not pay me until they receive that phone call. And I have pages of calls to make every month. So yes, it eats a lot of my time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a big believer, by the way, training that tenant on day one, not on an ongoing basis. Is if you set your expectations, what the company policies are, and you're consistent and enforce those policies on day one, you go over everything, your life as a property manager gets a lot better. And you're absolutely right. They'll wait for that reminder. They don't take responsibility for remembering when they're due. Which is crazy to me because that date never moves, right? Like It never moves. Whether it's first of the month, the tenant has a little bit easier time remembering that, or if it's the 15th when they move in, but that date never moves. Some of the things we always get pushback from our tenants is like, well, you never sent me an invoice for that. Well, you've been paying it for the last 2 years on the 15th of every single month. You're telling me you need an invoice to remember to pay. So it's one of those things. If you're training your tenant base that you're going to call them every single time, they're going to get used to it, right? So it's that getting them trained to not have that happen, because it's spending a lot of your time and effort on it, for sure.
Well, it's a good point too, Diane. You know, she's saying every month she has to go through these calls that she has to make. Every job has a tool, right? And having a product that helps you automate and use some technology to get some of those things done, that's the tool for the trade. So, you know, we have some suggestions to kind of minimize the amount of manual calls you have to pay, including auto pay and some other things as we get a little bit further in the presentation. But thank you for sharing that, Diane. It is something that we all deal with in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. And empowering your business with technology is something that I think our industry has shied away from. And we've always felt like our industry is always behind other industries when it comes to technology. I feel that it's changed in the last 3 to 4 years of being in this industry. I'm seeing a lot of catch up with it. We're getting more sophisticated with our marketing. We're getting more sophisticated with our CRM. We're getting more sophisticated overall with using technology to drive business and get results from that technology. And I'm a big believer, if you don't get results from tech, you're just paying for something that's cool, right? So when you're evaluating technology, it may be really cool looking, or maybe a kind of a cool idea, but is it really driving top line? And is it really cutting down expenses? Is it something that you're using to drive business, empower your business, as opposed to just put it in because it's something cool? I think, you know, a while ago there's everyone was really trying to explore, well, do we create our own app on iPhone, right? It was like this big conversation. I think CubeSmart developed a app where you can, you know, organize, you know, and tag where you put stuff in your unit. And I think there's still a value to apps, but it's kind of, we're seeing that it's a cool, fun feature, but I don't know if it really drives business and drives top line and reduces expense. It may differentiate you from your competition, but I don't know if it differentiates you enough. So there's certain things like that you always want to evaluate, for sure. And I like this quote here: simplicity is about subtracting the obvious and adding the meaningful. So it's subtracting the stuff that you do from a manual perspective that's just taking time, and living more simple and being more effective, right? If you can have a technology that saves you time, automates it, I mean, to me it's a no-brainer. And but I only say no-brainer, but also I want to see the results of it. So making sure you have the reporting, the data to prove the value of what you're doing is absolutely important, for sure. So the benefit, time management. We talked a lot about this already. You know exactly when and how the collection events are sent out. So that is operational controls, in my opinion. Is, as an owner operator, I want to make sure that the events that are being sent out when I want them to be sent out, how often I want them to be sent out. The communication and message is there as well, and making sure that you know, from a fully automated system, you're not relying on anyone to check a box and hit process. They automatically happen at a specific time on the day, and they get sent out no matter what. You get better customer service, right? Because it removes a lot of that embarrassment between you and your customer, or the customer and you, where the person who just forgot, and they're embarrassed that they forgot. I'm so sorry. I thought I was, you know, I completely forgot. Let me pull up my credit card right now. And they may be, you know, driving when you get a hold of them, or they get when you're making that manual call, you know, improves cash flow. So that's a really important thing. I think every manager cares about their paycheck, right? They care, so does the owner operator. We care about our paycheck. We care about making sure we can provide a job for you, make sure we can pay you, make sure we can pay our taxes, our mortgage, our vendors, everything that we do. It's so important to monitor our cash flow on a weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis. And it makes it more efficient as well. When you have an automated system, you operate at a higher efficiency rate than what you would do on a manual kind of standard operating procedure, because you never know what might happen. You may have to be locked down because of COVID-19. You may have be slammed with truck rentals if you do, U-Haul, Penske, or Budget, whatever is out there, and you're supposed to make 20 collection calls today, but you did 13 truck rentals and 5 storage unit rentals. Do you got time to make that collection call? Probably not, right? So if you have an automated system, it automatically went out for you. Reliability. And that goes back into that time management, efficiency, and valuable insight is the reporting. So all these things you should be evaluating when you're looking at your collection process. So we're ready for poll number 3.
All right, you guys did so great on the last one. We got another trivia question for you. What percentage of renters preferred to pay by text in 2020? Go ahead and launch this and give you guys 45 seconds. Let's see what you got.
And we pulled this data, by the way, from all the locations that currently use our system on all the different channels. So we have, text, email, pay by phone, employees manually entering through our system. And some of the results actually kind of shocked me on what the preferred method or preferred channel that most tenants actually paid through. And for my properties, my results actually varied a little bit different than the entire portfolio or the locations that use call potential at their sites.
All right.
All right, we're wrapping up here.
Yep, just there. We got a few more people who are responding, so I'm going to give them another 10 seconds before we close it out and share the results. All right, here we go.
All right, we got the top vote is 27%. What is it, Holly?
40%. We got you guys.
So this one kind of came as a shock to me. The texting over everyone is 40% on people making their payments. And we have, quite a lot of facilities that are using our platform that we're pulling this data from. My properties, again, I have 10 that I manage. And the highest chunk out of this piece is the pay by phone IVR. So a lot of our customers, based off of the markets that we're in, it was roughly, I think it was a little over 40% on the pay by phone IVR. And if you remember, again, this is that smart route technology that we use, that when somebody calls, we're able to identify the caller, if they're a current customer, and if they're delinquent. And we can put them right into that pay by phone automation system. And there's a significant part of my tenant base that prefers that method. And with the texting, I think it's really important to reduce a lot of hurdles from when they get the text until when they actually make a payment. And part of that is when they click the link in that text, it pulls up their account right in front of them. Again, they click the next pay now button, and it's done. And their account's paid for. They don't have to log into anything. They don't have to, it's really trying to take those hurdles out. And according to our study, 24% did that on email as well. So they click that email link and they're able to make their payment. So again, look at this pie compared to the 5% that it's entered by an employee. So if you look at these 3 different channels, text, email, and the pay by phone, or the automatic routing, or the robocalls, all this stuff takes up 95% of your payments that come through, which is significant time saver for you as a property manager and peace of mind as an owner. This part is one of my favorite parts of our system. Again, it's the money, right? The auto pays. Like we all know, the
Peter
set
is
and forget it, guys.
available on Tuesday evenings for private hire if you're looking for
That's
a
right.
performer.
That's right. I'll serenade anyone, for sure. So the auto pay enrollments, this is huge for any operator. If you get more people to sign up for auto pay, the less problems you have, the more likelihood that they're going to stay longer, which means more revenue. The more likelihood they're able to accept rate increases. There are significant benefits for auto pay enrollments. It's set it and forget it, right? It's the tenants don't have to worry about it. Automatically, it's pulled out of their account. I just got a new car a couple weeks ago. First thing I did a couple days after getting it is I logged onto my account, set it for auto pay. Like, I am huge with auto pay. You don't have to worry about late fees. You don't have to worry about anything. And also, you know, you're getting paid on time. Helps with your cash flow. It makes things so much easier. You know, and as an owner operator, you always can incentivize your property managers to get more people to sign up for auto pay. So if you have a specific percentage of your tenant base that you want to sign up for it, you can incentivize them. If they get to, you know, 30, 40, 50, maybe there's a different tier every single time they get bumped up. But also making sure your collection services that you have has the ability for them to sign up for auto pay through whatever channel it is. And it's extremely important and effective. And you know, everyone knows you know, average stays, you know, probably another 3 to 4, 4 to 6 months longer than people who haven't. And what was interesting to me is we were watching, you know, the collections during the whole COVID-19 happen, and Call Potential was releasing stats. You know, was it every week, Holly, we were doing that?
A month.
Well, every month. And so we were looking at month over month and then year over year. And we really wanted to see kind of what was happening with collections. And one thing that jumped out at us was the amount of auto pay signups from year over year. And we had an 88% increase in same store increase in auto pay enrollments year over year. Now, I've talked to a couple of other operators and they've all saw the same thing. And I think it goes back to what I'm saying is that we provide an essential service to our tenants. And there's a lot of value that we give them by providing them a space to put their stuff that they care deeply about, right? If it's worth storing, you know, they care a lot about it. They're not just gonna toss it. Now, you get a couple hoarders here and there, right? Because they just throw trash in there. But most of our tenants care about what they're storing. And I think they prioritize their budget. When they're the people who were affected by the COVID-19 and how it affected their job, they started making cuts in their budget, trying to figure out, all right, what is the most important thing to me? And again, move outs were down significantly as well year over year. But the auto pay said a lot, that they care so much that they want to make sure that not only is their stuff paid for, but it's never going to be late. It's not going to be at risk for going to auction.
So Easy Stop Storage had a comment that says, yes, I love auto pay enrollment here at my property. I have about 85% of my tenants set up on auto pay, which is excellent.
That is great. By the way, that's absolutely huge. Nicely done.
You'll have to pop in the chat, Easy Storage, and give us some tips on how you're getting some of your strategies for your high auto pay enrollment. Diane says, love, love, love auto pay. We've increased the percent of people on auto pay tremendously, and it does make our life so much easier.
Absolutely. And anything you can do from an automation side, right? Because that's automating the payment every single month. This is using technology in a smart way that drives your top line. Making sure you're and giving the tenants that option every single time if they're past due to say, hey, you know, if you want to avoid these messages, these texts, these emails, these robocalls, here's a great way. Just sign up for auto pay. And making sure the system that you guys are using does that is essential to running your operations. And what we're seeing right now, it's kind of gone up, but we're seeing right around 8 auto enrolls per month per location. Our normal is around 4 to 6 auto pays, and that's gone up significantly. Due to what's going on with the COVID-19. And the thing that's crazy too is it's lasted month over month. That percentage has been consistent, and I'm just waiting for it to fall back off and go down to kind of the normal range, but I've yet to see it. There's one property I had where I had 35 people sign up for auto pay last month alone. and we manage 8 properties in the Memphis, Tennessee market, and that was a pretty big jump for us, and we're very happy with that number.
That's awesome. Another tip that I've heard before, Phil, I'm gonna share yours. I know you're on the presentation, but when they're renting units, they ask if they want to take advantage of their no late fee guarantee, and if they say yes, they want to do the no late fee guarantee, they're automatically signed up for auto pay. And I've heard others who, they have the same habitual offenders who come in, they're late, they try to argue to get, the late fee waived. And if you are waiving the late fee as a tool, that you'll do that if they sign up for auto pay. Or if you don't want to get late fees in the future, we can sign you up for auto pay right now. I had a really great tip that just came in too from, it says ESS Midland, that says when a customer pays with a card, I ask them if this is the same card they want to use for their auto payments. Most of the time the customer will say yes. So I absolutely love that. You're assuming the close and leading them where you want them to go. Brilliant. I think that's fantastic.
Yep, absolutely. Always assume the sale. Don't give them an option. And if they push back, then start, talking about the hurdles. How do you overcome the hurdle of it? Or then you talk about the features and how it benefits the customer. And don't just give up if somebody says, no, that's all right. Make sure you sell. That do what you're hired to do. What you're the expert at doing, and it really helps operations. It helps everything with that property. That's some great ideas, Holly. How do you get started though? Using automation as a scalable tool. And what we mean by scalable is it's a easy system you can implement. And if you want to grow, it's something that's really easy to implement as you get more and more properties. And when I first started in this industry, we had, I think there was 8 properties with a company I started with. And over that course of the year, we more than doubled our locations, and within, I think it was 5 years later, we're over 80 locations. And I've always used this analogy is when you're trying to create operational standards and standard operating procedures while you're going through massive growth, it's like going down the highway, doing 90 miles an hour and putting gas in your tank at the same time. It's extremely hard, right? And to be scalable with a automated system and technology that you have, hey, these are the events I'm going to send out. This is the workflows that I'm going to do. This is when, day 5, day 6, 15 days past due. It's a quick thing that you can implement at a new property and not have to train a new employee on how to do it. And as you get bigger and bigger, training employees to do the exact same thing is a huge challenge. It is so hard to train, going from 8 properties, maybe 16 employees to, if you go up to 50 properties, 100 employees, 2 employees per property, it's significantly harder to train 100 versus 16. So if you have that technology that can do a lot of that stuff, it makes it an extremely easier thing to be scalable. So some of the features that we've talked about with our system and kind of what you can do is real-time reporting, automated omni-channel communication, and we always have an internal debate on whether it's omni-channel versus multi-channel, but we like the word omni-channel because that means any channel the customer wants to communicate with you, it's important to try to be able to communicate with them on their preferred means of communication, not on your preferred communication preferences. 2-tap payment system. So again, it's not that whole removing those speed bumps from them to actually make a payment, right? So if you get that text, if it's a link to your website and they have to then log into your website, if they already have an account, if they forgot their password, they forgot the password. If they don't have an account, they've got to create an account. Then once they get in the account, where do I make a payment? Like it's all these hurdles, right? Don't put them in the way of your tenant making their payment. 2-tap payment system is definitely the way to go. And routing the calls, how you want them to be routed with technology. It removes that IVR, press 1, press 2, press 3, puts them right where they need to be. And it really is a customer service issue that is better for them. Again, they're not making their payment over the phone to somebody giving the credit card information to a live person. It really helps drive that customer service for you. So that's it.
Wow,
I think
Peter.
we went over just a little bit, but you know, we have some time here for some questions. I know you guys are asking them, but Holly, do we got any questions that has come through that I have yet to answer?
Um, we do have some questions that were sent in before the session that we'll get to. I want to give everyone an opportunity. If you're on the session now and you do have questions for Peter, please go to the Q&A button on Zoom and go ahead and submit those questions, and I'll get those read to him. So let's give everyone a minute to get their questions in. I do want to let everyone know that we have 2 more sessions that are coming up, which you will receive invitations to shortly. One is going to be a debate with Peter and Phil over what is a better billing strategy, anniversary billing or first of the month billing, and we'll also have 2 guests.
I'll give you a
each
hint.
side.
I'll give you a hint on that one. Anniversary is way better. Way better. Cannot wait for this debate.
Phil's not here to defend himself, so. And then the next webinar that we have is going to be with Alana, who's with storage auctions. It's just such a necessary part of managing your delinquencies is having auctions. So we're going to ask her, come with all your questions, everything you want to know about online auctions, and we'll get you the dates for those too. It'll be similar format: polls, trivia, live Q&A. Looks like we're getting a couple questions in. All right, here's a good one, Peter. What strategy would you use on a facility with a bad debt problem?
So that's a good question. So what's nice about our system is you can set up different workflows. So if you have a property that has consistently high delinquencies, you may want to set up a more aggressive workflow. And what I mean by that is how often and when these events get sent out versus maybe a lower delinquency property. You may have a separate workflow for that. So I would probably start with something that's a little bit more of aggressive automated system for a high delinquency property, which we just took over a property similar to that. And we have kind of an aggressive strategy for it, and it's been working fairly well. That's the property that had 35 people sign up for auto bill pay through our system, and we just implemented it in August. And so it's been a very effective tool for us in that regards. And hopefully, you know, as we kind of filter out some of these tenants, our hope is that we're training them on day one on when they're able to make or should be making the payment. Hopefully we're getting a lot more people sign up for auto bill pay when they move in. And then we're also offering that option on all our collection events that get sent out. And it's really that mixture of, you know, sending out the payments, be consistent with it, making sure that they're actually getting sent out, because I don't know if the previous company that ran it or the manager that was there was sending out the notifications or making calls or doing anything really from a collection standpoint, and just letting everyone kind of go. And so for us, we just want to make sure that from a consistency standpoint and making sure that we know that those events get sent out has made a pretty big impact already just in the last you know, month and a half to 2 months that we've operated that property.
We have a couple questions that have come in around texting. The first question is, when you say pay by text, does that mean a text goes out that just links to the online payment link?
So the text will get sent out. It'll say, hey, this is a friendly rent reminder. You're past due. Please click this link now to make your payment. There's also a clickable phone number in there that when they click it, again, that automation on the smart route will put them right into a pay by phone system. They can make their payment to the system, or they can click that bit.ly link that is in that text, and it'll pull up a browser on their phone, and their payment information is going to be right in front of them. And so they will see how much they are owed. They can use a previous card too, if they've paid previously with a card, and they can just select it from a drop-down menu. In that same screen, they can just check a box, say, yep, I'm going to authorize you to charge my card every single month for this dollar amount. And they hit pay, and then the system processes it, sends them a receipt, and you're good to go.
Alan asked, can you address texting specifically and the success it has? Friendly reminders in advance, collections, etc.
So it's kind of up to you on what you want to do from a texting standpoint on days past due. I'll first talk about that because I think that's what you're asking, is that do you text them prior to a late fee hitting, right? I choose not to do that at my properties. I wait until after that late fee hits, so we get that late fee revenue. And also, I believe once we actually start reminding them, we should get compensated for the effort that it's taking to actually collect the money. We're all adults. We should be paying our bills on time. And we typically have a 5-day grace period, which is kind of consistent across the industry and written into some of the lien laws in different states. But it's kind of up to you on what you want to do. We have clients of ours that absolutely do that pre. 5 days past due, if they're day 2 or day 3 past due, they send out the payment, and they prefer to do it that way. We even had a client that's a large operator actually roll it out first that way, and it was so effective of getting people to make their payment that their late fee revenue nosedived, right? Because people made that payment before that late fee hit. And the district manager's compensation was based off of delinquency collections. Well, their bonus went down significantly because they made their payment before that late fee ever hit. So it was a good problem for that company to have to figure out. They had to revise the bonus structure for their DMs. They kind of revised a lot of their different procedures to kind of account for that. But it was that effective that it made that significant an impact. And eventually, in my opinion, even though late fee revenue went down, I believe revenue overall for that tenant is probably going to be more, right? Because they're happier sometimes. They may have signed up for auto bill pay. They're going to stay longer, accept rate increases. The lifetime value of that tenant's going to probably go up. So there's a lot of argument on that side of the table as well on what to do. But I just prefer personally to wait until that late fee hits first before sending out. And I would mix it up too on frequency. So I wouldn't just do text. I would do maybe a couple days later an email, maybe a couple days later a robocall, maybe a live call at 25 days past due, get managers involved. So there's a mixed bag. I wouldn't just rely on one channel to communicate. I would try to spread that out over like the omni-channel approach versus multi-channel approach, and really mix it up.
And
Did I answer that all right?
I think so. But if you have follow-up questions, please pop them in chat. Isn't there also a good argument like to not send until the late fee hits, because that can subsidize, more than subsidize your rent collection activities or your software? Like
Yeah,
if you send it when the late fee hits, it's automatically going to be collected by the system. You're not having to haggle with someone over waiving the late fee. It's just, you can't argue with technology really that way.
That's correct. And what we do in the balance do is we show you, hey, let's say your rent's $100 and you're charging that $20 or 20%, whichever is greater, late fee on day 5. So their total due now is $120, right? What our system does is just show them, hey, you owe us $120. We don't give them the breakdown. We say, this is how much you owe us. We're not giving you an opportunity to dispute this. You're late. We've fully disclosed that you get that $20 or 20%, whichever is greater, late fee added to your account. You owe us it, and make your payment. Another way you can offset the cost of some of this technology is by charging convenience fees, right? There's a cost to the technology, and because you're sending all this stuff out, it's justifiable for you to say, hey, well, you owe us a convenience fee for actually trying to contact you to get our money, that we provided you a service and we provide you that space, and we have every right to be compensated for that space. And now you're asking us to go above and beyond to reach out to you and remind you, right? So you can charge a convenience fee. We've seen people charge as little as $1.99 for it, and I think I've seen it go up to about $4.99 to make that payment, and it helps offset the cost of the technology, and that's revenue that you keep 100%. It's not something that technology or us as call potential would take a piece of at all. So that convenience fee is all yours.
But that makes me laugh just a little bit, because earlier in the chat, Diane said that she has to call people and remind them when they're late that she's not their mother, and she should not have to keep calling them to remind them. So let's call like the convenience fee the I'm not your mother fee.
Yeah, hopefully you're getting a Mother's Day present too, if you're being acting as their mother. So yeah, exactly. It's holding their hand, and late fees are meant to hurt, right? They're meant to be a penalty, hopefully to prevent that behavior. Convenience fees, same thing, and hopefully you're able to implement some of that stuff, and then get your tenants on the right track. You're always going to have delinquent tenants. You're always going to have past dues, and be able to manage those more effectively with technology is absolutely huge.
We have one more question, but before I get to the last question, I want to just let everyone know that if you would like to have a demo and take a look at the collection software, we'd love to show you what the program looks like and share some more insight. We're going to send an email with a follow-up email with a link to this recording, and also a link for you to be able to schedule if you want to learn more about the system. With that being said, the last question is if call potential is PCI compliant.
Yep, absolutely. We were fully complete PCI compliant. If, let's say, somebody calls in on that tracking number where we are able to smart route them into a pay-by-phone system, once they make that payment, that call gets or that recording of that call gets deleted, so no one has access to that credit card information. But yes, we are fully PCI compliant.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Peter. You have so much knowledge, and I appreciate you taking the time to share it with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions, follow-up questions, feel free to email us. And we look forward to talking to you soon. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.